Welcome to Life-Changing Challengers, the podcast where passion meets purpose. I'm Brad Minus, your host, guiding you through stories of transformation and triumph, from endurance feats to overcoming adversity. Our guests defy the limits and inspire action. Ready to ignite your desire and incinerate your barriers? Join us. Your journey to the extraordinary begins now. And welcome back to another episode of Life-Changing Challengers. Again, I'm your host, Brad Minus, and I am extremely lucky. You have no idea how lucky I am to have Kim Rahir with us. And she is in Spain. So this is an incredible honor for me, definitely. So anyway, Kim, how you doing today?
I'm great. In Spain, it's very hot these days. So after 2 p.m., you try not to move and stay inside.
Well, I live in Tampa, Florida, so I hear you. So Kim is a health coach, and she's also a champion weightlifter. And we're going to get into that real quick. But first, as I ask all my guests, Kim, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, the complement of your family, and what was it like to be Kim as a kid?
Yeah, so I'm a Northern German. I'm actually very proud of coming from the north. My grandfather was a fisherman. My great-grandfather was a fisherman. I was born and grew up in Bremen, which is not like a sea town, but still very close to the sea. Bremen's trade, tradition, everything. It all has this maritime context. I have an older brother, and I grew up in a suburb of Bremen, and I loved to play sports. I was actually a gymnast, became a gymnast when I was 8 for a few years. I was very smart in school, which turned out to become at some point a little bit disturbing because I was always told to shut up. And I also thought of myself at the time, because of the feedback that I was getting, that I was quite impertinent and cheeky. Because, well, apparently I didn't shut my mouth, or maybe not enough. I don't know. But I felt okay with that. Like, as a child, it was still okay. As I became a teenager, turned out that I was very smart, but I was not very tall. I mean, now I live in Spain, and most women are shorter than me, but I grew up in Germany where everybody was tall. And at some point, I even played volleyball, and I was like the shortest in the group, and people made fun of me. And so I grew up thinking that I was smart but short and fit, but I never looked my age, which at some point you come back with a vengeance where you don't look your age. But at the time it was a bit stressful. And my family, we used to drive north on the weekends, take a sailboat and go out on the sea. So that's like a theme in my life.
Nice. Germany has a reputation for food. Not necessarily is it spicy, not necessarily is it bland. It's got what type of foods did you end up eating growing up?
Well, this is a good question. My dad, when I think it was at the beginning of the 70s, so I was just about 7 or 8, he had a quite dangerous form of hepatitis, spent weeks in the hospital. My mom looked into food, into nutrition, how she had to feed him, and she then became a health food fanatic and a vegetarian. So we were eating whole grain stuff when most people didn't even know what it was, like whole grain bread and whole grain pasta and raw vegetables until the cows came home. So anything, there was hardly ever any sugar. That was when I went out with friends or to friends' houses, I could have sweets. It was pretty strict. And I mean, my mom tried to make like really tasty vegetarian dishes, but I was not really very much into eating for pleasure. It was eating for health.
Interesting. That is, in the 70s, that was not heard of, at least here in America. We were just starting our SAD, the standard American diet. Things were just starting to get supersized and all that other great stuff. So because I'm curious, so growing up in the 70s, you were a gymnast. So were you a fan of like Nadia Comaneci?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She was my hero. I don't know. Do you remember Olga Korbut?
That was the spot that I couldn't remember Colbert, but I remembered Olga that I just mentioned.
Yes, yeah, of course. They were our heroes. We loved them. And whenever there were like Olympic Games, we would be glued to the television. Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that first 10. And I wasn't very old at all, but I remember it's something that my family was big into. When the Olympics were there every 4 years, that's what was on the television. No matter what it was, a lot of it was, whether it was gymnastics or in the winter, it was figure skating or it was track and the decathlon. Those were things that were always on the television during those 2 weeks. So every 4 years was like, it was a celebration in my house, and gymnastics was something that we followed. And I remember that. I totally remember because it said 1.0 on the scoreboard.
Yes. Because the scoreboard wasn't made for it. It was such a big moment. And you're witnessing it and you know something special is happening, but you don't realize that this is like big history going on and you're there to watch the happening. Yeah, we love those girls.
Great. Yeah. Okay, good. I was just like, I didn't know if it was, well, Olga Korbut was from Russia, when Nadia Comaneci was from Romania. I didn't know if there was like when you were growing up, if there was any kind of rivalry there, especially since you were a gymnast. I didn't know, but that's why I was curious. That's why I had to know. I just had to figure it out, but that's great. So in secondary, so you went to secondary school, right? What was that like in Germany for you?
It was very short. I'm going to tell you the full truth. I skipped a grade and
Nice.
I skipped a grade and I still had no struggles. And then there was another thing where you could get your A levels half a year early if you prepared by yourself. I did that too. So I finished everything 1.5 years in advance. I was always thinking, and this is something that I don't believe in anymore today. I thought at the time, if I can just get ahead, like be faster, start everything faster, then I don't know what I thought I would be getting to or what was going to happen. But I thought, let's do this as fast as possible. Not really focusing on the process, but life taught me how to do that later.
So with that speed that you were going at, how were your grades? Because you're obviously very smart.
My grades were, I don't know how to translate that to US numbers. Like,
oh, true. Oh,
it was like 100%.
Really?
My A levels was a 100%. Yeah.
Nice.
I don't feel so good. I feel like I'm bragging, but it's just the truth.
No, but so a lot of people, it's hurry up, right? And you were very speedy on getting your stuff. So obviously sometimes trying to get it done, a lot of times in my case, that means that, okay, I'm suffering. I'm going to sacrifice an A for a B in order for me to get through. But you didn't. You were just by that. That's amazing. Where did you go to university?
I went to Bonn, which was the capital at the time, the temporary capital that had after the Second World War, and nobody thought it was ever going to change at the time. And I went to Bonn and I picked my course from a catalog. I just went through it and thought, what do I like? And I picked political science because it had all the things that I was curious about. And then I matched that. They had to have 2 more subjects, and I took history because I love history. And then I took French because I thought my English was okay, but I wanted to improve my French. But picking French, like French philology at uni, I can tell you is not the best way to learn a language.
I can imagine. Just real quick, was it a required course in secondary school to take English?
Yes.
Okay. And that's still going on today, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I remember that my brother and my mom had a fight because my mom insisted that we took 2 languages. And I also took French in school. I just thought it was not quite as evolved as my English. And my brother, he didn't want to take French. He hated it. And he somehow managed to switch it for, I think, computer science or something. And my mom was very upset and said, I have a diploma without a second language, foreign language is not a diploma. And there was a big fight going on.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that must be something. So you actually, I don't know how much after you graduated from university, but you actually were a journalist for a long time, weren't you?
Yes. I graduated I did a master's in 5 years. At the time, that was normal. You did 8 semesters, which is 4 years, and then you had 1 year for your dissertation. Then I did a PhD still in political science. And when I finished that, I started work at a news agency in Bonn, which somehow I stumbled upon that job through friends, which was the German desk of the news agency from France, from Agence France Presse.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. What was your specialty? Political science, probably, right?
In a news agency, you have to do everything.
Oh, really?
You have to do absolutely everything, yes, because they cover everything and you have shifts. And there are shifts when you are responsible for the whole world and everything that comes up. It pops onto your screen and then you say, oh, is this important for Germany? Okay, we'll take it. Is this important for Germany, for German clients? Is that no, we don't need that. And so it could be economy, it could be society, it could be fun stuff. The only thing we didn't do at that desk was sports.
What? An ex-gymnast can't cover sports?
Isn't that unfair? Yeah, no, but you know what? I don't know about the situation now at all, because I'm so far away from media and from Germany. But at the time, there was a specialized news agency for sports, just sports. And they were gold standard. There was no way anybody could have messed with them. So there was no point in spending resources on that.
Wow. So how long did you remain at that desk?
It was from 1990 to 1995. And then I got married to a colleague who worked in Paris, and we got to know each other over the phone.
Okay. That's interesting, right? 1995 was now we're just starting the .coms. They're just in the beginning, and all the BBS boards and all that stuff that was started to become news. And we're at Yahoo and all that. People were making billions of dollars. It was crazy. So there was no online dating, or there was no Teams or any a FaceTime or anything like that, or anything like this, what we're doing right now at the time. Yeah. So you made sure that you got to know each other over the phone. That's a lot of time.
Well, we had to work. I had to pester him because there were always special needs for the German service. So I had to call Paris and say, could you send this paper a little bit sooner and stuff like this? And then we got to talk. And I think we met also for work reasons. And then I think we went on dates twice, and then we got married.
What?
I'm not making this up. It's the truth.
And you're still married?
Yes.
That's incredible.
I think it's crazy and reckless. If my daughter were to do that, I would probably be very nervous. But yeah.
Yeah. But you're talking about most of your conversations were on the phone. You didn't really see each other. Nowadays, you meet on an app and you FaceTime, and before you go on your first date, and then you go on a date and go from there. You did this all on the phone. And you're still married. That's the thing right there. That's fabulous. That's amazing. Yeah, that's great. It just doesn't happen. You know what I mean? Now the people are meeting on these dating sites, and they're only lasting a few years, and it's half. At least here in America, it's a 50%. I think
it's the same in Western Europe. I think it's for relationships, it's the same as for everything that we do. We're just totally overflooded with stimuli. We have so much choice all the time. Our brain is not really made for this. And that's also why people are always seeking new thrills and going for drugs or binging TV shows, whatever it is. And there's just so much on offer, and our brain is built like this. It wants to go for stuff, for new stuff and interesting stuff. And if there is so much to be had, then it will most of the time go try get it. And I don't think it serves us. It doesn't serve our happiness, but that's how the world is. And I feel quite grateful to have lived in a non-digital world for a while. It's hard to imagine how we did things, but we did, right?
Oh, exactly. I used to be a residential appraiser, and that's how I made money through college. And I had to read a map to get to the different places. And you give a map to somebody now, they have no idea what it is or how to use it. If you can't GPS it, you're done. So,
and with the map, you got a real feel for the place and you really learn the place. I've been in Madrid for 10 years and I still rely on GPS for quite a few trips because I've never really internalized the layout of the city because I was never forced to. And before that, before digital times, you would take the map and then you would look at the street and then you walk down it and think, oh, this looks different. But somehow it inscribed itself into your brain too. And next time you would know.
Exactly. When you used a map, you knew where to go the next time. Yeah. But now with GPS, we just turn off our brains and just let GPS do what it's going to do. And you get there and that's it. And if you want to go back, you just put it back into the GPS.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily remember. Yeah. So that's interesting as well. So in 1995, you got married, and did you start to live together?
Yes, I left my job and we moved to Dubai.
You moved to Dubai, and that's before
it was fashionable. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like? What was Dubai like in 1995 versus?
I always called it like a big glitzy shopping mall in the desert, because there's landscape-wise, there's nothing. It really is like the desert. The climate is extremely harsh because it's very hot and super humid. Everybody thinks, oh, it's the desert, must be dry, because that's what we think. Well, it's on the water, it's extremely humid. And even at the time, the people who were there to make money, which makes for a weird vibe in the society. I mean, we were journalists. I mean, I started freelancing. My husband was assigned there. So you come with a different perspective. You just watch and look for stories and you're an observer. But most people were there to make money. And I mean, bless them, of course, you would. But it made for a very weird vibe. And there was hardly any culture. You couldn't watch movies. I mean, you could go to the cinema, but if there was something in the movie that was even remotely offensive, they would chop it out. So we watched movies and never understood what was going on because parts were missing.
Right. Oh, man, they censored the movies for you. That's wonderful. So how long were you in Dubai?
For 4 years.
4 years. Yeah, it doesn't sound like the best 4 years of your life.
I can't say that. It was quite exciting. I don't want to sound so... It's just that everybody says, oh, Dubai. What we did, because we were journalists, we traveled. I got to see Saudi Arabia. I went to Iraq twice under Saddam Hussein, which is that was an experience. If you've ever, I don't even know how to describe it, except that you can feel fear in the air so thick that you think you can cut through it. And the feeling of crossing the border and leaving Iraq is one of the best feelings I've ever had in my life at the time.
I actually know that feeling. I was there. And yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. The people, when he finally fell, there was a relief in the air, except that there also was a fear, because they just thought that he could just be replaced with somebody that was that somebody could be worse. But let's leave that alone. But that's okay. So the Dubai was like your gateway. You were able to get around and see a lot of other things. That's fantastic. And so after 4 years, where did you move after that?
We moved back to Paris, which is headquarters for my husband's company. And we stayed for 9 months, and then we moved to Vienna. And at the end of Dubai, our first child was born, by the way, in Dubai.
Oh, that's amazing. So then you moved to Vienna. Well, you're a little closer to home.
Yes.
Little closer, right? I was in Vienna. I loved Vienna.
Vienna is fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, that was great. Did you enjoyed that?
Absolutely. Had 2 more kids, which sort of keeps you busy. But Austria is just, you take the car 3 hours, you're in the Alps, you're in the most spectacular mountain range that Europe has to offer. It's beautiful. It's well conserved. They realized this sort of green have trends much before anybody else. It's because they had like a huge scandal with, how do you call this? With wine. They had cut the wine with something. They had spiked the wine, I think. I don't know how you call it. So they had to reinvent themselves, and they did. And it was beautiful at the time, and it's green, and the landscape, everything. You can go wonderful places. That was a great time.
I spent some time in Kitzbühel, And I love
Lovely.
Kitzbühel. Oh my God, it was fantastic. So how long were you in Vienna?
4 years. That was
It sounds like a military day. That's like when I was in the military, it was like 3 years, 4 years, and then you moved.
It's a bit like that because it's very important for a journalist to not become too integrated into the place. You have to stay the observer, which in a way is great because you don't worry too much about what's going on in the country. You don't feel too concerned. You can enjoy everything because you know this is temporary. Stuff that doesn't work so nicely, you don't take so seriously because you know it's temporary. But of course, you don't have roots and you're not integrated. So trade-offs like everything in life.
So between being a journalist and moving all the time, you're pretty well traveled, I imagine. Can you, just so we're not gonna keep rolling with this, can you list off the rest of your journey to get you to Madrid?
Yeah, when we always went back to Paris, and then we spent 4 years in Berlin, and then another 3 years in Paris, and then we came to Madrid.
Awesome. So there is something that happened when you were 50, if I'm not mistaken. Is that when so you were diagnosed with MS. What were the symptoms leading up to that, and what was to lead to that diagnosis?
Yeah, it's a bit of a saga. It started 2 years before. I had an autoimmune episode, which is called a Guillain-Barré, the syndrome Guillain-Barré. Apparently, it's very common in soldiers, and could be with my 3 kids and my full-time job. I was soldiering on a little bit at the time. That sent me to hospital from one day to the next. I was paralyzed from the hip downwards for 3 weeks, had to learn to walk again and everything. But they told me afterwards that was a one-off. It comes, it goes. Guillain-Barré is the name of the 2 French doctors who discovered this.
Yes.
My kids were still small and it was super scary. And when I got over this, I was like, oh my God, I get a second shot at life. I'm going to do everything much better and new perspective and gratitude and what have you. And then after 2 more years, my left hand was going numb. So the first episode was in Berlin. I was 50. We were in Paris. My hand went numb and went to see the doctor. And he said, yeah, this time it's different. This time it's actually MS. So that was a low blow.
I can't even imagine. So just to give a little thing. So this is episode 40, episode 24 with Kelly Magin. She detailed a 4-year saga of going through that, where she was completely paralyzed, couldn't talk, couldn't do anything.
Wow.
With the Guillain-Barré. And then say that again,
Guillain-Barré, yes.
Guillain-Barré. She just thought it was GB. So
I'll do that in the future.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That was what we just got to the point because I couldn't say it. Can't remember it. But yeah, so check out you can recheck out episode 24, and on the YouTube version of this, I will put that I will put a card up there so you can grab that, so you can get a little bit more, because she really dug into what it is, how it is. So you'll be able to grab that. So all right. So you ended up with that, but were you able to get past that before the diagnosis?
Yes.
Okay.
I got out of the hospital after the 6 weeks. I was in a wheelchair. I had to use crutches. The one crutch, I learned to walk again. It just, because the nerves had been attacked and they were healing. And I got treatment for another year, I think. And then one day the doctor said, we stopped the treatment. You're fine. All is great. And I thought I was just a normal person again, not somebody who hangs around in hospitals. And then the second strike, which was, a low blow. And it felt very dark. Mostly, I didn't have much damage. My left hand is still numb to this day. What's the worst thing's the fear, the uncertainty. You don't know where you're going. And some doctors, I don't want to blame them, but I remember while I was getting some kind of infusion, a doctor came by, asked me questions for a survey he was doing. And he said, he was researching a particular variation of MS where you go blind. And I said, oh, thank you very much for sharing that with me. I needed to know that you could go blind too. So it's scary.
Yeah. Let's step back, because you said it was a low blow, but what were your symptoms that led to that You
It
said
was
your
just
you said your hand was
numbness in the left hand, and it was ascending. And then it took them a while to catch it because of my GB. Thought it might be that. So they gave me an infusion of something that didn't help. And then they did an MRI, and then they saw damage in the spine. And then they gave me, I don't know how you call this, cortisone, we call it, right away. Yeah. And then they stopped it. That stops it. But because it took a while before they discovered it, my left hand is still numb, which is, I find that fascinating actually, because the sensations, the weird sensations, I do have them in my left hand, but I know that it's a lesion in my spine that causes this. And it's very hard to wrap your head around that.
I can imagine. It runs in my family, so I got a pretty good education on it. I did have an aunt that passed away, and I have an uncle right now that's affected by it. He's doing great, by the way. He still plays golf, does the whole thing, but it got a cocktail of different drugs and PT and the whole bit. So my first client that I ever had, I'm an endurance coach. He had MS, first client. And I'll talk about that anecdote in a minute. But so how bad? So you got the numbness in the hand. That was the start of it. Did it get worse from there?
No, it didn't. That was the first relapse. I had one more where I was doing a weird yoga pose on the floor. And I think I was doing the plow or something. And there was a tingling in my spine. And I knew this was another one. And that was it. That was it. And I recently talked to a doctor who said, yeah, we have this 5-year rule. I don't know if you're well versed in MS. Maybe I had no idea that if you make it through 5 years without relapses and problems, that you're more or less on the good side of the tracks.
So, yeah. So they're saying that if you go 5 years, then they consider you in complete remission. Doesn't mean that it doesn't come back, unfortunately.
Absolutely.
I'm not trying to scare you. Not trying to fear you, but
no, I'm aware.
Yeah, well, it's more for, it's something that needs to be put out there. The doctors nowadays, there seems to be an issue with bad news. They got to say it, but they try to walk on eggshells, and they're like, oh, well, you're going to be fine. And for fear of lawsuits.
Oh my goodness. Like
here, right?
You scared me so much, and I'm traumatized. So pay me $5 million, or is that?
Yeah, so the bad news is if it's wrong, or if you come out of it, then they're considered a laughingstock, and they misdiagnosed or whatever, and then out here, America's sue happy. It's like, oh, you were wrong. You made me go through all this stuff, and you were wrong. I'm going to sue you. Yeah. And so they can get paid. And it's ridiculous. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And the physicians have to carry insurance for reasons like that. And the insurance is astronomical. So out here, we're losing physicians left and right because they can't afford to be a physician anymore, between insurance, patients that are going after them for malpractice. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. So that's a trend that's going on out here. So that was the one relapse. So you left journalism after getting that was a little bit later. So when I got my diagnosis, I fought with a doctor, and he said, you need lifelong treatment. I was writing the prescription, and I said, hang on a minute, can we talk about this? His lifelong treatment was that, I found that very scary. And I think because of my hospital stay when I was paralyzed, this experience of having no power at all, like nothing. Not in a hospital, you don't even decide when the light is on in your room, or when there's a person in your room, or it's crazy. You have zero power. And I think somehow giving away my power again to needing lifelong treatment, that really scared me. But he was not used to people talking back, that's for sure, asking so many questions. He was like really just prescribing this thing, wanted to send me on my way. And I fought with him for a long time until he got a little bit impatient. So I had to give in. I got the treatment. I had to inject myself with interferon beta 3 times a week, which has unpleasant side effects, which I covered with over-the-counter drugs because I just wanted to live my life. And I wanted to make myself physically strong. So that's when I started training
like seriously lifting heavy. And I got better and better through that, which was crazy. I had asked the doctor, can I exercise? And he said, yeah, okay. Like actually saying, I have no idea what I'm talking about. I just don't want any responsibility. Fits nicely with what you just said. If I tell you, go lift weights and you hurt yourself, there's my lawsuit. But a nurse told me that exercise was great for MS, makes you fatigue resistant and everything. So I just went for it. Got myself a nice book, started lifting heavy, very meticulous with form. I wanted to be like the perfect lifter and everything. Got stronger and stronger. And I think the main thing that happens when you do strength training is your mental health. You become a different person. You become so confident, the way you carry yourself. Because I think it's just instinctive. If you feel like you can hold your own, or you can carry something heavy, or you can push your car, whatever it is, I think it gives you this feeling of being adequate or more than adequate to whatever life throws at you. And I experienced this. Now there's tons and tons of research. Like all kinds of mental health symptoms get better with exercise. There's absolutely no doubt about this. The one thing that pains me, and I still haven't found a way to deal with that, is when somebody is like really low with their mental health and they're like really feeling depressed. You can't go and tell them, oh, you just exercise, you're going to be fine. It doesn't work. You can't get them to take that step because they're in a place where it's hard for them. And this is something where we have to find a way, get them closer to trying that as a remedy. And I think doctors, they could help a lot. If doctors were to tell patients, try and do this, maybe it would be a little bit easier for them to say this. Otherwise, it just sounds like, oh, come on, don't be a sloth, get up and move and you're going to be fine, which is so callous and it really doesn't work. So we need to find a way to help people who have mental health symptoms to get to move without like feeling pushed or shamed or anything. And we moved to Spain. I joined a new gym. It's always the first thing I did when we went somewhere, join a gym. I told nobody that I had MS. That was my dirty secret. But I didn't want that label. Right. Just wanted to be, I'm happy to be the crazy German who lifts heavy. I don't want to be this is the lady with MS. I didn't want that. And found a great neurologist here after 3 years. I think we were going on a camping trip to Canada, and I said, can I stop the treatment for 2 weeks? Because I don't want to take all this equipment on a camping trip. And he said, you can stop, period.
Really?
He did, which is to this day, very unusual. Usually you start this thing and you never stop. He is very up to date, goes to conventions all the time. And he says, actually, we're not quite sure that this medication is very effective. And if something happens and you need medication again, it's not going to be this one. And I so love him for having said this, because so many doctors would have, this is what you described, would have feared like, oh my God, you have treated me with the wrong thing. And that's not that at all. He just had the stature to say, we're not sure, so you can stop it. And it gave me a lot of confidence, because if I was doing so well, it made it more likely that it was not because of the medication, but because I was getting better. And
was there any side effects when you came off of it?
No.
Like withdrawal? That's awesome. Like, because that's some of the fear that some people, you've been on it for. How long were you on it before they told you to stop?
I think it was a total of, when did I start? I think it was 3 or 4 years. 4 years, wow. I think. 3
or 4 years. They didn't know. And this neurologist was up to date well enough where he was like, I don't even know if it helps. You're on it for 4 years. And he says, all right, stop. And no side effects. And you just kept getting stronger. Obviously, yes. You kept getting stronger. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But
yeah, that was my second shot at life after the GB.
Yeah.
And now this was, and I don't know, I know it sounds cheesy, but every step that I take every day, I'm grateful. I appreciate it. I know it's not a given.
So GB, that you basically were paralyzed on the side of your body, then being diagnosed with MS, and then you decide, all right, well, I've already been going to the gym, but now I'm gonna strength train. What led you to dedicate yourself to strength training, weightlifting?
I had this urge. I wanted to become strong. I wanted to be physically strong. It was instinctive. And once I got to Spain, I worked with a PT, which was great fun because most women, when they go to the gym and they work with a PT, they want to toy with pink dumbbells and they want to walk on the treadmill and stuff. And he was so happy to find someone who wanted to do pull-ups and deadlifts. And he then one day said, would you like to try Olympic weightlifting? Because he had himself gotten into this. I said, okay. And I was thinking about this before when you mentioned the Olympic Games in your home. That was my memory of Olympic weightlifting. Watching the Olympics with my dad and like overweight, hairy guys in totally weird leotards on a stage lifting extremely heavy stuff. But I found it like, I was curious. I said, okay, let's try. And then he showed me there's 2 movements in Olympic weightlifting. And I tried it and I totally sucked at it. It's like, I love to be strong. It's technical. And that's what hooked me, because you have to, every single lift, you have to be totally present. You have to give it your everything. You can never say, oh, I've done this, I do it again. And I have to be like this, just this moment. This is what I have to do. And you can always get better. And I started this when I was like 55. So it's not like your body doesn't learn it like just like this. You have to grind and do it over and over again. But I loved it so much that I joined Pure Weightlifting Club. And after 2 weeks at that club, they said, hey, great that you're training with us. Would you like to compete?
2 weeks? And they're like, do you want to compete?
Because they ask everybody to compete. They're a competitive club. And I said something that I would never say again today. I said, what? Do you know how old I am? And they said, we don't care.
Exactly.
And then I said, yes. And I'm convinced in my 30s, I would never have said yes. I would never have said yes. I would have thought, oh my God, this is going to be stressful. This is going to be, I don't know, go to competitions, do stuff. And in your 50s, and so my weightlifting coach actually says, people in their 50s, they become anarchists and they just do whatever they please. And it's very difficult to manage them. So I said, yes, let's do this. Best decision I ever made.
I just a third of the way through my 50s. And yeah, all of a sudden, I don't care what people think about me anymore. I just don't care. If I want to try something, I'm going to try it. And the hell with anybody that's going to say anything that I can't do it. So yeah, I get it. Let me share one anecdote. So I don't do an episode on myself. So whenever I find a comparison where it's similar, then that's the time that I give a little bit. My first client as an endurance coach was somebody with MS. I was in the pool, I was swimming. This guy stops me and he asked me a couple questions. What are you training for? And I says, well, I was training for a triathlon. And I says, well, and I just started my coaching business. And he's like, oh, he says, would weak ankles stop you from taking on a client? And I'm like, no, we just strengthen them. Not a big deal. He goes, well, what about if I had MS? And I said, definitely I would not turn you away because you need to move. You've got to move when you're with MS. So to make a long story as short as possible, he started running and we got to a 5K and he was great. And we moved into the 10K and then he did a half marathon and loved that distance. That was his favorite distance. He did do one marathon. But his thing is that no matter whether it was organized or it was by himself, he did a half marathon every weekend. Either Saturday or Sunday, he went out and did a half marathon straight up. Oh, now, don't get me wrong. During the week, he did his aerobic runs. I did put him in the gym for mobility and agility, not necessarily for strength, but that's a side effect of mobility and agility. But he kept this routine. I saw him like 8 years later. and ran into him at a race. Of course, that's where you run into people, right?
Yeah.
And he gave me this biggest hug in the world. And I says, hey, I'm like, are you still running a half marathon every weekend? He goes, well, yeah. So what happened was that his medication dropped dramatically. Like the dosages were next to nothing. I don't know what he was on. So at that time, I now take into consideration my clients' medications, but at the time I was brand new and it's not something that I thought was my business. But he's like, no, drastically reduced this and this. My doctor took me completely off of this, and I have like next to no medications. Not a little bit different than you, but he was still on just like baby doses is what he called it, on baby doses of this stuff now, just to keep me, for maintenance. And I was like, wow, I mean, that's amazing. And he's like, yeah, if I stop doing my half marathon every weekend, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to go back on medications.
Oh,
So yeah. But okay, so that's running. It's more an endurance side. Yes, he was in the gym twice a week for agility and stability, but yeah, and then 3 other runs per week. So he was running 4 days a week. And yeah, and you can't tell. He's lean, he looks great, and he's flying, like literally doing half marathon in like hour 27, hour 30. I mean, just crazy times. Just because he just kept doing it. I mean, you're just going to get better. If you keep doing something, you're going to get better. So that's my anecdote on MS. And I was very happy to see him at that point.
Yeah, no, but I love that you're sharing this, because this is also, nuance is always a problem. We're not claiming that you can cure MS with exercise, but you can anybody can improve their quality of life, like tremendously. So when you have a condition like this, you want to try. See, can I maybe improve at this? It's really important. So that just because there's no guarantee that that you have the outcome like your client had, doesn't mean that it's not worth a shot to feel better, get better and healthier. You need to do something.
And even somebody without a terminal condition or an autoimmune disease, the first couple of weeks are going to hurt, right? Is you're doing things you've never done before. So that's where a lot of people stop. That's what somebody that's absolutely off the street decides that he wants to get better at something. And a lot of times it stops people. They walk into the gym, they're told what to do, they do something, and then the next day they're so sore they can't zip up their own zipper. And that stops them. All of a sudden they become, the association with the gym is pain, not pleasure. So they stop going. They'll try again, and they do the same thing. What I found is that you need to start small and slow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're preaching to the choir.
Exactly. So I put if I'm taking on someone that has never run before in their whole life, they literally go through sessions of walk, run, and at very small rate, and sometimes like twice a week. And that's it. I'm like, all right, you're going to go and you're going to walk for 5 minutes. You're going to run for 3 minutes. You're going to walk for 5 minutes. You're going to run for 2 minutes. You're going to walk for 5 minutes. And that's it. That's all you're going to do. And they feel great. Maybe the next day they might be a little tight, but they're never painful. And then I just keep increasing the run interval. And all of a sudden they're doing 5-minute walk, 20-minute run, 5-minute walk, 19-minute run, and a 5-minute walk. And they're like over the moon. And then we start removing some of the walks. And they're just over the moon. I can't believe I ran 39 minutes, 40 minutes.
Amazing.
I did that. That's amazing. And because it's slow and progressive every week, that they're not feeling like they're super sore. They don't get that pain. They get a tightness, which I move to have them associate that with accomplishment.
Okay. That's smart.
Associate it with accomplishment, not with pain. So it's something like, hey, I did this. And this tightness when I wake up the next morning or 2 days later, this tightness is my badge of honor that I accomplished something.
Yes.
So now I move their association to something positive. So they will go out the next time and they will do it.
They're gone looking for it. What you're describing is particularly important for the women I work with, because I work with women in their 40s and older. And if you haven't done any exercise for a while, you have no idea of where is your body at? What can you do? What can't you do? And now, in the age of Google, so many women, they will Google something like fat burning. What's going to pop up? High intensity interval training. And they're going to try it. And then they're going to get hurt. They get disgusted, frustrated, and hurt. Or you wouldn't believe the number of women I talk to will say, oh, I did a couch to 5K. Not one of the women I talked to got out of there uninjured. It's like my ankle, my knee, like in 6 weeks or something. It's crazy stuff. And when you have reached a certain age, and that's the most important part, you need to start where you are. And you need to know, what is my strength? What is my mobility? How can I challenge myself, but not overwhelm myself or get hurt? Because that's one of the big things when you're older. You don't want to get hurt because it takes you so much longer to come back in. And it will throw you back a lot more than a young person. Young lifter, they get hurt and then they come back after 2 weeks and they're as good as new.
Right. A coach that I had for a while told me this great anecdote. I know it's not an anecdote, it's a quote. Train the person that showed up that day. Right? That goes all the way around, right? You train the person that showed up, not the person you think showed up.
Yes.
The person that showed up. So if you have to be very honest with yourself. So like you said, someone that has come in and they've only been training for a week and all of a sudden they're feeling 10 feet tall and bulletproof. They still got to maintain the program and still progressively get better, not and increase their load, but not increase it 10 pounds in one sitting. You're not going to do that. Depending on the lift, obviously, but after a week of training. So
totally.
You got to you've got to train the person that showed up. So, which you did and you kept doing until you competed, and at age 60, which is just less than a year ago. And what happened there? And where was it? Tell us about what the competition was and what it was like, and then give us the punchline.
Well, it was a European Masters Weightlifting Championship. It's something that it's amazing. I'm sure you know about this. Masters, like people are masters when they're over 35, which is a little bit sad because a 35-year-old person to me seems like a very young person, but then you're a masters athlete. And people are now organizing competitions and events to keep playing their sports. So you have it in track and field. I think it's very common in all kinds of sports. So people don't sit next to the fire and knit socks. They go out there and they compete. And in these weightlifting competitions, you have like these very old Eastern Europeans, so old school. There's a guy, I think he's 89. I have seen him several times. He travels, he goes to the weigh-in, and he goes and lifts. It's amazing. I want to be like that at 89. So this one was the European Championship in Ireland, in the beautiful city of Waterford. I think that's how they pronounce it. And I actually won. I won in my weight category and in my age group, which I never thought was something I could achieve. I don't know why I thought I couldn't. Sometimes I think it's because I was always told to shut up as a kid. Maybe that I think I should lift more than anybody else. It was a great day. I was ready. I did what I could. I get 3 attempts for each lift, and I never make all 6. The last one is always like a bit daring, and you try to do something, and then more often than not, you fail that last lift, but it's fine. It's great. It was a wonderful feeling. But there's one thing that I need to say, and this is more like an overall life wisdom, but I think it's really important. It was a great day. It was a great moment. I was really super happy, but I was not like over the moon euphoric or anything, because I am very focused on keeping my highs low in order to keep my lows high. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. We have this in all the systems in the body, in the human body, are actually like in a seesaw manner. And if you've ever heard about this, the book Dopamine Nation by Anna Lemke, the higher your highs, the lower your lows. And I try to tell my clients also, make this amplitude, make it nice and small. It doesn't stick with the narrative, like we have to go like big and big ass this and go for it and must be the best time of your life. And when people get married now, I think that they, I don't know, travel to castles like hundreds of miles away, and they it must be all the best and the greatest and the most fantastic and I don't know what. And then after this big high, then the next day you wake up and the person next to you is not the prince, it's just this guy, and then you drop very low. So I was really happy, accomplished. I felt that I had worked hard for it, but it was not like, oh my God, the greatest moment of my life. It was just fulfillment and happiness, and that's fine. That's fine. I think it's really crucial to be aware of this, that we don't need to look for just like the next thrill, the next kick, and even bigger and better. And it's the same when it comes to, this is more back to my work, when it comes to eating. People are always looking for a new taste, a new combo, a new restaurant, a new this. And it doesn't really lead to happiness or fulfillment, and definitely not to a lean body.
I get it. I tell my clients both, when they've achieved something that they have set out to do and they did, or they've exceeded their goals, the same as when things don't go the way they want them to. You get 20 minutes. You cross the finish line, you find your results. From that moment, you have 20 minutes.
Yes, that's 20 minutes, great. I love that.
Right. It's 20 minutes to either whine and cry and get mad and throw things, or you have 20 minutes to be over the moon. And then you just remain happy and go back to that person that was just happy to be there, that was just happy to compete. Right. And so I give them, I'm like, you got 20 minutes. That's it. And when I get these texts, I'm like, oh, I screwed up. And I'm like, and I text them back. Okay. What time did you find the results? Oh, about 5 minutes ago. I'm like, you got 15 minutes left. And I don't want to hear it.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
love that. I'm going to use that actually.
Yeah. So I do it for both. And I'm like, someone comes up and I'm like, great. I'm like, fantastic. I says, keep the dopamine going, keep the euphoria for the next 15 minutes and then go get a beer. So enjoy it. Yeah. So that tends to be, because most of my clients are habitual racers. So there's already another race on the schedule. It's most likely not better or bigger. It's a race they've already done or something. So for me, it's always just our goal is to do better than we did last time. Yeah. So that's always the goal. You just want to do a little bit better than last time. I'm like, you come in 1 second faster, or if you felt 10% better, you might not have come across any faster, but when you came across the line, you felt better than you did the last time.
Yes, that's
You've won. You've totally won. You know what I mean? And for us, it's the course could be different. You got to worry about wind and heat and cold and the whole bit. You know what I mean? Which could just absolutely kill a race. But most of the time, it's like, but you want to go back. You want to feel better, or just do minimally your time is a little bit better. And I like 1 second faster is fine. And that's just as good as coming in an hour faster. It's the same. You've got a PR. That's it. Right. But that's amazing. So when did you decide that you wanted to start coaching yourself?
It had always been some kind of dream at the back of my mind for quite some time. And I think I took the plunge when I got off my treatment, actually. That's when I felt probably this feeling like you get another shot. It's like a new beginning. And I had been a bit frustrated with journalism for a while. I'd been working a lot for TV, which is so superficial. You don't really give information. It's become entertainment. And information has become a commodity that you have to sell. And I mean, I'm not against this. Like, I love stories, and you can sell the information as a story to make it interesting, and to you want people to enjoy what the information. But if that's like the first priority and then everything else has to give way, it's not for me. It's not for me. And I felt that. So I decided, I think it was 2017, I'd quit my treatment and I quit journalism. Took all the certifications and I wanted to go online because at the time we were still on 4-year contracts and we were already in Madrid, but we didn't know how long we were going to stay. So I decided to do everything online, learn how to coach online, then took the ACE, American Council on Exercise exams and everything. And then I started my business, which is it's like weightlifting. You have to learn so much.
Yep. I took that plunge in 2012 and still learning about business, still learning, still finding stuff that's new. And in the fitness industry, things change just like dramatically.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Even on the legal side. So, but your specialty is women over 40. And it's basically strength, right? You talk more about strength and habits than just typically the whole weight loss. You do have a program for it, but that's not your emphasis, right?
No. I mean, I think weight loss can be very important for health reasons, depending on where you're coming from. But it's about the perspective and the angle of attack. So the most effective thing that you can do is build muscle. And that's for men and women alike. But since I know women's struggles better and I have this my own experience of getting better through becoming stronger, that's why I work mainly with women. And muscle and strength will take care of so many problems. It's like it's a one-stop shop solution, and it's actually quite simple. And here's the problem. It's not intuitive for women to want to be strong. It's not part of our upbringing. We're taught to be small, slim, elegant, cute, pretty, what have you. When you have nice parents, they want you to be educated, but nobody ever teaches you that you need muscle. And as a woman from 35 onwards, you're losing muscle mass like at an alarming rate. And we notice that something's off in our 40s when perimenopause starts, and then people will say, oh yeah, that's just hormones, and my mom had this, and my grandma, I don't know, it's just hormones. And I hate that because first of all, it's not totally true. When you start feeling lousy in perimenopause, you're just beginning to notice what's going on. For most women, it's because for decades, they haven't looked after their bodies. And because they have looked after everybody else, they have looked after everything and everybody. And that's when you start paying the price. And so if somebody tells you it's just hormones, no. It's also, I hate this too, because when you say it's just hormones, it sounds like there's nothing you can do. It's like glaciers exist. What are you going to do? And it's not. It's nothing of this is true. Yes, there are symptoms and they can be like very unpleasant, but there's not one of them that cannot be improved if you take care of your physical fitness, if you look after your nutrition, and then you need a little bit of mindfulness, I think, stuff like this to complement it, and that's it. And what I love about this muscle solution is that it's so simple. It's so simple because it can inform all your choices. It will inform your food choices. What will I eat? What's best to eat to fuel my workout and to grow muscle?
Yes.
Am I going to drink alcohol, or do I want my body to grow some muscle overnight? Okay. Am I going to go to bed on time so I can have like the full benefit of growth hormone working for my body, for my health, for everything? So there's no overwhelm or overload. There's no ambiguity. It makes everything simple. It informs your choices. And that doesn't mean that you have to live like a monk or something, but you know what to do, and you can make an informed decision on when you're going to do it, and maybe when you're going to have a party and do something else. And when I see all the solutions that are offered out there, so many women actually believe if they take like turmeric, the problems are going to go away.
That's been a thing about that some of the gurus have like figured out that some of the longest living people in the blue zones, that they seem to have a lot more turmeric in their diet than anything else. And that just became out, I think it became a misnomer, but I agree with you. I think muscle and moving, to keep moving. It's the old adage, it's the physics law. An object that stays in motion, an object in motion will stay in motion. I think I got that
Yes,
right.
absolutely. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But, and I've noticed that just with myself, right? So I work out in the mornings and then I go to work and then I come home. And if I'm coaching after work, I'm fine. I have no issue whatsoever. But if I come home and I'm just hanging out, talking and being on the couch, I'm tired. So an object in motion will stay in motion. So I noticed that and I was like, I don't understand why I'm so tired. I'm in good shape. I have a low resting heart rate. Everything in my blood says it's great, but man, come like 6 o'clock, I am like, I could go to bed. I don't understand that. But those days that I'm coaching or I'm at a meet, because I also coach cross country, I'm fine. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock rolls around. I'm 100% fine. I have no issues because I stayed in motion. And I think that's something to definitely, we need to get out there. My always things is like, no matter what you've done in the morning, where the workout is, I would say that if you work in an office, you should take your lunch or eat your lunch at your desk and then take a half hour and then take 20 minutes and go walk. After dinner, same thing, go walk.
Yes.
No matter what you did that day, go walk. Just 20 minutes, have a conversation with your significant other or your child or something like that and just walk, because you'll be shocked at how much more energy you've got just because you stayed in motion. You didn't become stagnant.
Absolutely. And there's also, it's tricky actually, because there's women who tell me, but I work out regularly and still I'm tired and I can't lose weight. But even if you train every day for an hour in the gym, and then you spend the rest of the day sitting down, you have a sedentary lifestyle.
Right.
It's not, I know it sounds so harsh and so difficult to say that's not enough, but I think we're not realizing that our bodies are optimized for movement, which means that it's not like we're sitting and then if we walk a little bit, we get better. No. If we don't move enough, we get worse. If we're sitting all day, we get worse. We function best. Our health is best when we move. Actually, what I tell my clients is as much as you can. Right. Take every opportunity. And there's something in our world today that makes that pretty hard. Our environment is set up in a way for us not to move. Our environment invites us to sit at home, sit at our desk, have food delivered to our doorstep, drive everywhere. And I'm going as far today as saying we have to fight for our right to move. We have to see movement as a right, and that the environment is somehow taking away from us. And it's a mindset shift that's really important, because we could easily just say, well, this is just my life, so I can't. And then I know that in the US, there are areas where it's extremely hard to walk, right?
Right.
I had a client, she said, there's no sidewalks where I live. In Europe, it's easier. But you really have to be intentional, deliberate. You have to say, I need this for my health, and I'm going to fight to make this happen.
If I'm not mistaken, and it's just because I watched part of the documentary and I heard something on the podcast that there are blue zones, and the majority of them are in Spain and Italy. Do you know anything about blue zones?
I have no idea.
Okay, so blue zones are the areas with the most population of centennials.
Longevity. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the interesting part about these blue zones is just what you said. Most of them are geared to walking. You walk everywhere. You walk down the street. And they had these great interviews on this documentary that I saw that unfortunately I don't remember what the name of it is, but I will find it and I'll put it in the show notes. But they interviewed this guy, and they're this gentleman who was older, and they were like, well, what's your day like? He says, well, I get up and I move my cows to a pasture. And it's like, he gets on a horse and he takes them out to this pasture. And I think it's like 5 to 6 miles away. And it's a long freaking walk. And then he gallops back. He says, I have my breakfast. He says, I read a little bit. I might take a little nap. Then I walk down the street to the bar and I meet my friends. We play games. We have lunch. And I walk back. And then I get back on my horse and I go back and get my cows and I bring them back. And then I have a little dinner. I might walk back down to the bar. I might walk to the restaurant. I might meet some friends. And then I come home and I go to bed. And that's pretty much my day. And I enjoy my life. And I'm like, oh, great. And then they ask, and by the way, how old are you? He goes, I'm 103.
Whoa. Holy cow. Oh, yes, that's amazing.
Right?
You can see here here in Spain, for example, now that the hot summer weather is here, as soon as the sun goes down, everybody goes outside. Everybody goes outside and goes for a walk. That's very common. Maybe because you've been locked in by the heat and you just want to move and you haven't lost that natural instinct. Now, walking, it's crazy because walking gets either underestimated or overestimated. People who underestimate, they go, well, the bit of walking it's not enough to get in shape. It's not enough which is not true. I think it's like the most democratic, most accessible, simplest health tool that there is. And then as people who overestimate walking, they have a sedentary lifestyle. They walk for half an hour and then they say, oh, I walked. I can have a piece of cake now.
Right.
That doesn't work either. We need to understand that it should be just normal to be on your feet most of the time. Exactly.
This morning, I had a 5.5 hour bike ride this morning at about 18 miles an hour. And I'm still going to walk I'm still going to walk tonight after dinner.
Yes.
So it's just, you get the habit. And I think the habits are important, right? So you move from there. But Kim, I got to tell you, I am totally impressed with you. Your knowledge, I wouldn't say theory, your methodologies on the way that you talk to your clients and you treat your clients and you prepare and move them in the direction that they need to go is beyond reproach. I can just listen to you talk about some of the stuff forever because you're right on the money and you've lived it. And I think that is the biggest gift that you give people is you've lived it, you show your experience, and then you back it up with the research that you've done. And I think it's fantastic. That's the only thing I could say. And it was only 1.5 years ago that you won, or it was less than a year ago that you won the European Masters.
Yeah, it was about a year ago. And I'm preparing the World Championship now. That is in September.
Okay. All right. And she's going to the World Championship. So we need to you lock onto that. And we need to make sure that we know when that is so we can look that up later on. And I'll provide an update. World Championships. Where's that going to take place?
Finland
In September.
Very close to the village of Santa Claus.
Awesome. Oh, well, we're going to be rooting for you. We totally are going to be rooting for you.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
Yeah, that you take home gold at that. And I know with the determination that you've got and the compassion you've got, you're going to do really well. So I can already feel it. So I'm super excited about that. So we're going to make sure that we watch our blogs and look that stuff up on the Google box so we can make sure. And then if I can find the link to it, I will put that in the show notes, make sure that you all see that. So anyway, but Kim could be found at kimrahir.com. And she's got she's got an assessment that you could take on there. She's got the ability to talk to her on there. So you need to read through it. She's got some resources. So definitely take a look at that. Are you active on any social platforms?
Yes. Yeah, you can find me on Facebook and on Instagram. And I share tips and tricks and thoughts, but also my weightlifting adventures and training, which can be hard in the summer months, but because championship is in September, you have to train through July and August, and so I share stuff of that. I try to make it fun and entertaining too.
Excellent. And I will link both of those in the show notes as well. So you will have full access if you want to talk to Kim, if you want to hire her, if you just want some advice, you can either slide into her DMs, contact her on her webpage, and you could talk to Kim, because I think she's definitely someone that you will want to talk to if you're thinking about either starting a strength training regimen, or if you found that you are stagnant, if you found yourself plateauing. I think she'll give you another viewpoint, and she's got a lot of them, so it's good. Anyway, Kim, thank you so much for joining us here on Life Changing Challengers. I so appreciate you, and I am looking forward to watching you continue to compete and take home a gold at some of these other competitions.
Thank you so much. I had a great time talking to you. You're a wonderful host.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And for anybody who's listening, we will see you in the next one. Well, that wraps up another episode of Life Changing Challengers. I'm your host, Brad Minus, saying thank you for joining us on this journey of transformation. If today's stories inspired you, please take a moment to review, share, and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create an even bigger impact. Remember, every challenge is a chance to grow. Until next time, keep pushing, keep challenging, and never stop pursuing your extraordinary.